Windows 10 was released in July of 2015 to a fairly good reception, and now, almost 10 years later, it is still by far the most popular Windows OS. So today, I want to showcase 10 things that Windows 10 did right, which contributed to so many people liking and continuing using this operating system. At number 1, I'm putting the Start menu. After the launch of Windows 8, we thought that Microsoft forgot how to make a proper Start menu because, yeah, this was a mess. But no, turns out they can make a useful, easy to navigate desktop optimized menu that is the core element of Windows. You had a very traditional looking list of programs and folders. On the left and on the right was the new pin tile section, which quite frankly, I really liked. You could organize your shortcuts into categories, and hey, if you didn't like this, you could just hide this section altogether. Nice. Now, some would say that this Start menu was the beginning of Microsoft pushing ads and pre-installed crappy software into Windows, which I would kind of agree. But still, I really like this menu design, and I think it still holds up really well today, and it also doesn't have that silly recommended section like Windows 11 has that, by the way, you cannot remove. While we're on the subject on the user interface, I have to say that the general look and feel of the OS was also really well done. It was a very much refined UI from Windows 8, but the important thing was that it was very consistent and easy to navigate. I never had an issue of finding some kind of setting thanks to this search option in the settings menu, except maybe the folder settings that were still in the control panel for whatever reason, and I believe they still are in Windows 11, so there you go. The File Explorer, while not improved too much, didn't make things worse, and speaking of not making things worse, I think today we can appreciate that Windows 10 didn't change the right-click menu because this old style worked so well. So really, all I'm saying is that the UI just works. Even going back to it now, it doesn't feel outdated at all, except maybe the lack of the File Explorer tabs. I really like File Explorer tabs. Let's now check out these minimum system requirements. Look at this: 1 GHz processor, 1 GB of RAM, 20 gigs of free space. It honestly feels like I'm reading system requirements for a lightweight Linux distro instead. But no, this was Windows 10 in 2015. And I can confidently say that these requirements are still accurate today after all the cumulative updates, since I did try to run it on our old dual-core laptop. The OS also didn't require any kind of security TPM chip, which meant that, hey, if your processor and RAM are good enough, then you'll be able to run Windows 10. I'd bet my money that TPM 2.0 is a big factor for folks sticking with this OS. Even though bypassing TPM is honestly very easy, you have to consider that most people aren't techies who know how to do it. You know who else didn't know how to do it? Internet Explorer, man, what a horrible time that browser was. Microsoft knew that, and with Windows 10, they also debuted the Edge browser. And you know what? Honestly, Edge was such a big improvement from Internet Explorer that it's not even funny. It was never as good as something like Chrome or Firefox back when it came out. I'm not saying that, but I'd argue that low-key, this was one of the most underrated additions to Windows 10 because the fact is, many people use the default browser that comes with their operating system. And going from Internet Explorer to Edge probably increased user satisfaction by a lot. It had a modern design that was in line with the other elements of the OS, had pretty good performance, and yeah, it also used Bing as the default search engine, but you could easily change it in the settings. Even today, Edge is still a great browser, and Microsoft is putting so much work into it, and you can tell because they really want you to try it, to the point where they ask you a million times if you're sure you want to switch. Virtual desktops were also a thing in Windows 10, since that's when this feature was first introduced with Task View. I'll be honest, I rarely use virtual desktops, probably because I always have at least 1 or 2 big monitors when using a PC, but I know people who really rely on Task View a lot because it can really improve your productivity, especially on a laptop. And yeah, Windows 10 had this feature on release, and it definitely was a welcome one. By the way, you should also welcome Surfshark into your online world because it will help you improve your security and privacy. One of my favorite Surfshark tools right now is Surfshark Search, which gets rid of those annoying sponsored messages you get at the top. So it provides much more organic internet searches overall. But of course, Surfshark also has other nice things like a VPN or an antivirus. And by using our promo code Academy, you'll get 2 additional months free. It will also be in the description of this video. And hey, if you don't like Surfshark, it also has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's nothing to lose. Now, back to the video. Did you know that Microsoft's Xbox Series X is running a modified version of Windows 10 as its OS? It's actually not surprising at all, as 2015 was around the time when Windows and Xbox were sort of being merged into one thing. And Windows 10 is the start of that with the addition of the Xbox PC app. Here you could review your Xbox achievements and stream your Xbox games to your PC, but it also sparked this synergy between the two platforms. Nowadays, of course, the Xbox app is the core of Game Pass on PC, where you can access hundreds of games. And besides this app, Windows 10 also introduced the Game Bar, which, while it may not be as good as something like MSI Afterburner for tracking your game performance, I actually use it a lot for adjusting different sound levels, since sometimes I want to mute my game sound while listening to a YouTube video in the background. DX12 was also introduced with Windows 10, and while it is the default gaming API today, I remember many games performing better on DX11, probably because of the processors at the time, but still, DX12 was a very good addition nonetheless. The Action Center was also a good addition. For the longest time before Windows 10, I don't think Windows got notifications quite right, and with the Action Center, notifications were centralized in a nice one spot alongside these toggle options. As a desktop user, quite frankly, I didn't use these options that much, though whenever I was on a laptop, that's when things changed, because I would be constantly toggling things like brightness and Bluetooth or Wi-Fi options. Okay, everything we mentioned so far was cool and all, but let's be honest. The single most important reason why people loved Windows 10 was Cortana. She was so useful. You could ask her to make a joke or search for something sometimes. All right, I'm obviously kidding. Cortana was pretty crappy, honestly. The update situation in Windows 10 at launch was also pretty crappy. Do you remember those Windows 10 update memes where Windows 10 would seemingly out of nowhere just restart your computer without asking you first? Yeah, all that started here, and it wasn't a good time at all. However, I'm including this here because I think Windows 10, while it had issues with updates at first, later developed this very nice update delivery system, and today I think many people are very happy with it, and I never had an issue of Windows 10 begging me to update or something like that, at least with modern Windows 10 versions. Again, it just works. Your PC should also work fine if the OS it is using has good security. And you know what? Windows 10 introduced some neat security features too. Unique one is Windows Hello, which used either a camera to identify your face or a much preferred fingerprint method. And while Face Unlock didn't work great since most computers and laptops were using low-end webcams, the fingerprint option worked awesomely. Windows Defender was also improved to work better compared to 8. But okay, here's the last thing that Windows 10 did right, and then later on removed. I'm talking about the original OG Windows 10 wallpaper created by director G Monk. Just look at this wallpaper and tell me if it's not one of the best Windows backgrounds to ever exist. The coolest thing about it was that it was actually a photo taken with a real camera and not some CGI editing magic. With the help of lasers and projectors, they were able to create an iconic wallpaper that, quite frankly, is a big part of the OS aesthetic and the overall feel. And it's kind of sad that as Windows 10 was adopting a flatter design, it later switched to this wallpaper here to be more in line with that style. But I'm sure most would agree that the original version was way better. So there you go. These are my reasons for why I think Windows 10 was and still is a great OS. Now, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for sure. There were issues with privacy and the start menu becoming bloated by default, coming in with random apps, updates coming in at random, restarting your computer. It's safe to say that there were a lot of growing pains with Windows 10 at first. But now with the official Windows 10 support ending in 2025, what will most users do? Again, Windows 10 is currently used by almost 70% of all Windows users, while Windows 11 isn't even at 30%. And there might be a reason why. Go watch this video next where we discuss 11 things wrong with Windows 11. But that'll be all for now. Take care.